Welcome back to Lit Sports Online. We're here to do our review of UFC Fight Night 144 from last weekend, as well as a preview for the upcoming UFC 234 in Melbourne, Australia, and a quick blurb about Gervonta Davis, who fights this weekend as well.
All right.
Let's get to it. So, starting off, we'll cover the fights we talked about from last weekend. Up first, we have the fighter with the most submissions in UFC history, Charles Oliveira, picking up another submission.
Yep.
1 minute into the second round.
Quick work. Light work.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't wholly unexpected. David Tamer is a great striker, but Charles Oliveira, I mean, I don't know what else to say besides he holds the record for the most submissions in UFC history.
That's
I mean,
legit. No.
It's put your money there. Why not?
Why not?
And moving on, I guess, to the man I consider the scariest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner in UFC history, even though he doesn't hold that title for most submission wins, Demian Maia. Just doing what Demian Maia does. He went out in the first round against a powerful striker and did what he does. Clinched him up, dragged him to the ground, took his back, and choked him out in the first round in 2.5 minutes.
Jeez.
Demian Maia is going to do what Demian Maia does, and the only people who've been able to stop him are super high-level wrestlers. Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington, and Kamaru Usman. And Tyron Woodley is the one who figured it out. He's the first one to figure out like the blueprint to beat Demian Maia. And
you would think more people would watch, or at least like ask, "Hey, dude, what did you do?"
Well, they did. The two guys that he fought right after he lost to Tyron Woodley did pretty much the same thing. They all had the same game plan. There was strike in a range, take him down, or control him, but not let him take you down. And that's what wrestlers are good at. Wrestlers are good at controlling where the fight happens, controlling whether they, taking the other guy down or controlling whether or not they get taken down. And that's what all three of those guys did. So Demian Maia's on a little bit of a skid, but he's losing to the top three guys in the division, so it's not that big of a deal. And he's a huge name. He was a contender at middleweight, came down. He's always a contender at welterweight. So I think we'll see him do what he always does. He's one of the last true specialists in the sport. He's one of the last guys who's so good at one specific thing that people just can't deal with it.
That's insane.
And he's just a monster. I mean, everyone who fights him knows exactly what he's going to do, and they can't stop it. It's insanely impressive to watch. So, on to the co-main event of the night. Returning king of featherweight and the king of Rio, Jose Aldo returning to form and putting away Renato Moicano in the second round. Kind of a vintage Jose Aldo performance. Mm-hmm. Looked good. He was just too fast, too powerful for Moicano. Moicano just couldn't keep up. And in the second round, he caught him with I think it was a right hand, and just had him staggered and did not let up. The finish is pretty, terrifying to watch. Just the ferociousness that Aldo attacks Moicano with, which is both good and bad, right? It's impressive. He got the finish. He saw that Moicano was hurt and immediately put on the pressure and didn't let him get out of that situation, so he finished the fight. But it also looked a little bit reckless. It was a little different than what he looked like when he was younger. When he was younger, he would still come forward as soon as he got you hurt. He's always been a finisher, but he used to be a little more reserved when he was younger. Yeah. He wouldn't kind of throw with reckless abandon. Like some people say, he's just leaning into his punches too much, and they say he's leading with his chin, right? So he's just too far out over his front foot to get that power and that shot and to catch the guy and reach him, and puts himself at risk. So granted, he does this generally only when he has somebody hurt, but in a lot of cases, with guys who are more power punchers or just a little more experienced than Moicano, you're going to have guys that even when they get clipped and they're wobbly, have the wherewithal to throw a heavy counter strike. Yeah, and if you're coming forward and charging forward like that, you're opening yourself up. So great win by Jose Aldo. Ferocious, looked shades of his old self, but a little different, and it's a little worrying once he gets back to the top of the division. So the question is, where does he go now? And a lot of he mentions the Conor McGregor fight. I would like to see the rematch. I mean, the first fight was 13 seconds. We didn't really get to see the Conor McGregor-Jose Aldo fight. We saw what you can sort of amount up to a fluke. I mean, not really, but that's not going to happen again, chances are. So that would be a fun fight to see. He just got a great finish over over the guy that a lot of people were thinking was going to be the next contender for the title. And so he deserves to get a top ranked guy. Brian Ortega called him out. Didn't really call him out, but just said that he would take the fight. Alex Hernandez, who recently lost to Donald Cerrone, offered to take the fight on short notice if he wanted to go again soon. So I don't know. Well, maybe we'll see him go up a weight class to lightweight, which I think would be good for him. He's a big featherweight. He has a hard time making the weight. And that would open him up to the Conor McGregor rematch, to fighting some of the guys out there.
I think that'd be his best bet, honestly. That would be so entertaining. I would just bring in a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's a money fight right there.
Yeah, that's the biggest fight he can make. And also, that's the quickest way to a title against somebody he hasn't fought yet.
Yeah.
He's not going to get a shot against Max Holloway again, most likely. Holloway pieced him up twice. But if he goes up to lightweight, he's still one of the greatest fighters of all time, with one of the longest winning streaks and title reigns of all time. And so he goes up to lightweight and beats Conor McGregor. He's going to get that title shot at lightweight, which I think would be fun. I don't know how he would fare against, Khabib and Tony Ferguson and all that, but at the very least, he's a super high-level fighter who's phenomenally exciting and has earned his spot at the top of the division. And it would just be one more super interesting wrinkle in that lightweight division, which is already super deep and super high level. So I'm not sure where he'll go, but if he goes that route, I'd be very excited.
I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah. Moving on to the main event of Rafael Assunção versus Marlon Moraes. And we had a much quicker victory than I thought we would, in a way that I didn't see it happening. We had Marlon Moraes submit Rafael Assunção in the first round.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So Rafael Assunção is basically every time somebody beats Rafael Assunção, they fight for a title next.
So it's virtually a given.
Yeah. Like last time we saw Rafael Assunção lose was against TJ Dillashaw. Went on to fight Garbrandt for the title, got his title back. Then before that, I don't remember who he lost to. It might have been TJ Dillashaw, or I can't. Or maybe he beat TJ Dillashaw the first time by decision. I can't remember. But nonetheless, super high level fighter, always at the top of the division, always that close to a title shot. Just hasn't quite gotten it yet. Fighting Marlon Moraes, a guy who came in with a lot of hype, and Moraes' first fight in the UFC was actually against Assunção.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. I remember that.
Yeah. So he came in having been the defending champion in the Professional Fighters League, formerly the World Series of Fighting. And with that much hype behind him, they immediately put him in there against a high-level guy in Assunção. And they went to a decision. A lot of people think Moraes actually won the decision, even though the judges gave it to Assunção. So it was a fun fight to have the rematch. And also, they've both been on a tear. Moraes has recently knocked out some of the highest level guys in the division with super exciting head kicks and knees. I think he knocked out Jimmy Rivera with a head kick, and he knocked out Aljamain Sterling with a knee to the head while Aljo was faking a level change. And dude's just a monster. He hasn't lost in years. And he went in there and submitted Assunção in the first round, which is...
That's insane.
Yeah, incredibly impressive. Incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
And I think Assunção's last time he got finished in a fight was in, 2008 or some crazy shit. Like, he's impossible to finish in a fight. And Moraes went out there and finished it in the first round. Super impressive victory. I think he definitely deserves the title shot.
I think he proved himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
Unfortunately, he's in a division that's kind of tied up with the whole TJ Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo thing, right? Because he's a bantamweight, which has TJ Dillashaw as the champion, who wants to get that rematch with Cejudo, whether it be at bantamweight or flyweight, we don't know. But it's unfortunate for him that he's in the situation that he's in, because
He deserves it.
He definitely deserves a title shot, without a doubt. And so we'll see if they make TJ take another fight or whether they give him that immediate rematch because the ending was so controversial in the Henry Cejudo fight. I don't know, but I'm super happy to see Moraes win in such decisive fashion and propel himself towards that top of the division. And I think that he should not accept any fight outside of a title fight for his next shot.
No question.
Yeah. So that finishes the preview. Or the review of last weekend. Let's move on to this coming weekend. UFC 234 out of Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, going down under.
Yes. And
Dude, I'm excited for this card.
Not surprisingly, they loaded it up.
Oh my god.
With stars from Australia.
Yeah.
Or
that area, Pacific.
Yeah, Australia and New Zealand. One of the things I'm most excited for on the very early prelims, Lando Venata is fighting. Mm-hmm. Just always fun. Lando Funky Venata, they call him. Just a super fun striker, super creative, a lot of varied techniques that he uses, and always an entertaining fight, win or lose. Yeah. So I'm excited about that one. But we'll get on to the top couple of fights that most people are going to care about. We'll just go right to the co-main event.
Let's do it.
This card isn't a lot of big names in the middle, so right on to one of the most exciting fights I've seen in a long time in Israel Adesanya versus a man that a lot of people consider the
UFC
GOAT.
God.
Yes, Anderson Silva. The reason I got into fighting when I was, I don't know, 15 or 16.
So I'm a little bit older than you, not too much, but I remember in college, it was like 08, 09. I had like this old iPod Classic, and I used to have like Anderson Silva fights on it. I just watch it in between classes and shit. Like, Anderson Silva, I remember actually one of the most gruesome memory, of course, when he snapped his leg in half and he went for that leg kick and it wrapped around homeboy's leg.
Chris Weidman, yep.
That was brutal. But I mean, Anderson Silva's like,
it's the first time he lost in the UFC.
Yeah.
Second time he lost in the UFC.
And it was such a horrible way to lose, though. But
yeah,
he's always been one of my favorites. And fighting one of my new favorites, someone I just recently discovered me personally, getting back into UFC. And I love this kid. Adesanya, like, he hates being compared to Anderson Silva, but you can see why he's compared to him at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but his own style, he's his own style, his own swagger, but God.
Yeah, he understands the comparison because he himself has said in interviews that Anderson Silva is his idol. He's the same as you and I. He got into fighting by watching Anderson Silva. My cousin one day sat me down in 2005, 2006, and was like, "Dude, you got to watch this guy Anderson Silva. It's like watching Bruce Lee in an octagon. It's crazy."
Insane.
And that's the reason I started fighting is by watching Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida. And Israel Adesanya is the same. He watched Anderson Silva when he was a kid. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that if you watch tape, you can see Adesanya doing almost identical things to Anderson Silva.
The way they move, it's like, it's just fluidness. And, I've watched a lot of Anderson Silva fights, a lot of highlights. And I got a chance to really study Adesanya lately. And it's just this fluid-like waviness to him. It's really wild. And it's, me personally looking at that, it's hard to fight someone like that because they have this confidence about him where, dude, you can try to hit me, but I'm going to fuck you up. Yeah, just straight like that.
Yeah, it's the timing that he has.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that he's like a copy of Anderson Silva. Or even, you could just tell that he studied Anderson Silva and he has some of the things that Anderson Silva does or did when he was younger, Adesanya has picked up on and utilizes in his own tool set. He does fight differently than Anderson Silva, but he does look similar to Anderson Silva in his fighting style in the sense that they have similar body styles. They're both tall, lanky guys. They're not giant, buff dudes. They're just long, and their timing is great. And their striking game is super varied. Their footwork is great. They can fight out of either stance, which completely throws guys off. They have very varied kick games, spinning back fists, spinning back kicks, elbows, anything you can imagine these guys can do. This is one of the highest level striking matches you're ever going to see in the UFC.
Amazing.
And I honestly don't know what's going to happen.
I can't call it. Like, here's the thing. So, You have Israel Adesanya, who's relatively young.
Yeah.
You know, a younger guy coming up the ranks, and I mean, let's see, he's
29.
29. He's my age. Holy crap! And you got Anderson Silva. And it's funny. I was watching a video, you know, as we were preparing for the fight. Oh, yeah,
80-inch reach.
He has a son who's starting his fighting career. You know, Anderson Silva's son is starting his amateur fighting career. So you got a guy that's got a son old enough to fight him. You know, and now he's fighting another kid. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think Anderson Silva's 42.
Yeah, 42, and still out there whooping ass. You know,
43.
Huh?
43.
43, even older. I honestly, I can't call it. I'm excited for this fight. Like, I can't wait to watch it because I grew up watching Anderson Silva. Like, and, Israel Adesanya, another one of those fighters is just kind of like almost a rock star in the ring, in the octagon. And I don't know. I don't know who I want to win. I don't want to see Anderson Silva lose, but this is a true, and I've said this on previous episodes, this is a true bona fide changing of the guard fight. This could
definitely
go down. This is a passing of the torch fight in my mind if Israel Adesanya can pick up the victory.
Yeah, or it's Anderson Silva proving that he is
still
as
the GOAT.
insane as people think he is. And I think the big difference is their fighting styles are similar in their approach to it, right? They're typically counter strikers, but then once they start to get the groove, like the feel for the other guy, they will get aggressive and start picking the other guy apart. They both have a similar approach. I think Adesanya, being the younger guy, is going to have the benefits that come with that on his side, which is just probably better conditioning, stronger, faster, a little more durable, right? Hasn't been knocked out, never lost an MMA fight. He's been knocked out in kickboxing and stuff, but he hasn't lost an MMA fight. Anderson Silva was actually training with one of the guys who knocked Israel Adesanya out in a kickboxing match.
I did see that.
And Anderson Silva is coming in with the advantage of time, right? He has so much more experience. He's fought bigger dudes. He's fought every type of fighter you can fight. He used to fight kickboxing as well, so he's fought high-level strikers. He trains with high-level strikers. He's fought jiu-jitsu geniuses. He's fought wrestling geniuses. He's fought power punchers. He's fought everything you can imagine. He's seen everything. Every look you can give him, he's seen. And so the question is the experience and like the ability to read a situation and handle it correctly and keep your composure and know what to do if you get in that bad spot and know how not to get yourself trapped by typical strikers' traps that they both would set up for other opponents. They might not fall. They're not going to fall into those same traps, And so it's a really interesting fight. I have a feeling that Adesanya is going to win just based on what I said earlier. I think he's going to be quicker, stronger, a little more pop to his punches, and he has a reach advantage, which Anderson Silva usually has over guys.
I think this is one of those fights, this young man's going to take in. This is probably one of the biggest fights of his life, honestly, at least to date.
It is the biggest fight of his career, without a doubt.
The biggest fight. I mean, how cool is you get to fight your idol?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen every day.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, and that also goes, it makes another point, Anderson Silva, with the longevity to last that long, that you're fighting someone that looked up to you.
Yeah.
Like, that's
awesome. Anderson Silva's been in the fight game for like 20 years.
20 years.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think... I don't know what's going to happen. I'm so baffled by this fight.
I can't pick it. Like, when when we were going over the card earlier, and I saw this, and, I'm doing research, I'm like, I can't call it. There is no way I could go on camera and call this.
Yeah, I don't want to pick a winner.
I'm not going to. Screw it, we're not going to.
They have said that if Anderson Silva wins this fight, he immediately gets a title shot, which a lot of people are like confused by because he recently had a suspension for questionable drug tests and all sorts of stuff, and hasn't won a lot of his most recent fights. But he's Anderson fucking Silva.
Yeah, I mean,
he's the GOAT.
He's the Michael Jordan of MMA.
Yeah, that being said,
there's no other,
Yeah, and that is why it's such a big fight for Adesanya, because it is Anderson Silva. This is the way, if Adesanya wants a title shot,
this is the way
and
to
wants
do it.
the quickest and easiest way to get there, this is the way to do it. He beats Anderson Silva. He could get a title shot based off that win without having to go through the hellscape that is the top of the middleweight division. Yeah. He's avoiding having to go through Yoel Romero, and Jacare Souza, and Chris Weidman, and Luke Rockhold, and Kelvin Gastelum. He's circumventing all of those guys who have terrible styles for him to fight against. Yeah. Adesanya is a phenomenal grappler, but what we haven't, or a phenomenal striker, but what we haven't seen is him face a super high level wrestler who's going to take him down, or a grappler who's going to be able to take him down and control him on the floor and ground and pound him and tire him out that way, and slowly tire him out until he gives up a submission or gives up a big shot on the ground. We're not going to see that. This is arguably the best matchup for him in the sense that he's fighting another guy who's a super high level striker, and that's how he approaches the game. He's fighting a guy who's going to be willing to play his best game with him, because that's also Anderson Silva's best game. Now, it would be nuts, though, if we saw Anderson Silva get inside, get a trip, take him down, and submit him. That would be crazy. We've seen Anderson Silva win by submission. We saw him triangle chael center. We saw him rear naked choke Dan Henderson, two of the best wrestlers of all time. So this fight is insanity. It's going to be one of the most fun fights or one of my most anticipated fights. I hope it's fun. It could be boring.
I think it's going to be fun. I mean, how could it not? I mean, it could be. You know, but here's the thing. Anderson Silva, he wins here. He goes on, gets his title. He's calling it quits. He said that.
Yeah, that's what he said.
He said he's going out on the mountaintop. It's almost poetic, and I kind of want to see.
Yeah.
But then Israel Adesanya, if he wins, obviously he goes on title. His career is cemented. He's going to keep going and going and going and doing what he does. But if he loses, I don't think this hurts him as much. In my opinion,
he's young, so he's plenty of time.
He has time
to work his way back up.
And again, you lost to Anderson Silva. If you lose Anderson Silva, that's not a
terrible
terrible thing. Yeah. Especially if you keep it, competitive.
Yeah, of all the blemishes that could be on your record, you know, there's a few that you don't have to worry about that much. And those are like Anderson Silva, John Jones, and Demetrius Johnson. People just look at that and they go, I mean,
it's they're the GOATs. It's the Mount Rushmore.
But, Adesanya is young. He has plenty of time to work his way back up to a title shot if he loses. So part of me wants to see Anderson Silva win so that he can go fight for that title.
Yeah.
I don't know. He might get through Robert Whittaker. If Robert Whittaker wins, he might get through Gastelum. I don't know. But that's what he says. He wants to win this fight, go on, take a title shot, win the title, mic drop, walk out.
Yeah.
Greatest of all time, done. Which would be awesome.
Yeah.
Adesanya's here to spoil that story. And he very well could do it.
I have confidence the kid could do it. And I'm, oh my God, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm hyped for this fight, dude.
And we have one more fight to talk about.
Let's go.
The main event. Kelvin Gastelum challenging Robert Whittaker for the middleweight title. Robert Whittaker, the first ever Australian champion.
That's awesome.
Undefeated at middleweight. Fought monsters. Dude had to fight Yoel Romero twice.
Jeez.
Yoel Romero. That dude looks like an action figure.
Yeah, you so many comparisons. I was like, Jesus. Dude
what? Is a freak. But
built like a G.I. Joe dog.
Robert Whittaker is a very dynamic striker with a very interesting striking game. Fights very well at different ranges. And just durable as all hell. We saw him take the biggest shots Yoel Romero could dish out. And he was still there, still fighting, still putting it on Yoel Romero. Not to mention that second fight, his hand was broken. First fight, his knee was shot. He tore his ACL or something in the first 30 seconds of the fight. Went on to win the fight. Threw kicks with that leg, threw kicks with the other leg, posting his weight on that injured leg.
Guy's a damn savage.
Second fight, broke his right hand.
So he should just stop.
Went out and still won the fight. Just threw heavy kicks and left hands all day and still won the decision against Yoel Romero. And Yoel Romero, a silver medalist wrestler in the Olympics, could not take down and keep down Robert Whittaker. His takedown defense is insane. His ability to get up off his back after being taken down is insane. And dude has a very dynamic striking game, a lot of power, and is just able to pace himself and control how the fight happens so well. And he's facing another guy who's very good at that same thing. Kelvin Gastelum is incredibly good at controlling the distance that the fight takes place at. He's a good boxer, and he likes to fight at range. That being said, he doesn't have the longest boxing range. He has some long punches. Yeah. He has a big, heavy, straight left. He's a southpaw, so he throws that long, straight left down the pipe. But he has a stance where instead of leaning over his front foot like a typical boxer, he kind of takes like a karate stance or a traditional stance where he stands more upright with his legs, with his weight distributed a little more evenly between his legs. That way, he can move in and out a lot quicker. Not only that, but when he does move in and out, he's able to slip punches without actually like moving back a lot. So he doesn't get himself out of range to land a shot. But he'll hop in real quick and then just lean back at the hip, avoid a punch, and then he's right there in the face to land those punches right afterwards. We saw him do that against Michael Bisping. So against Michael Bisping, he throws a long hook. Bisping immediately goes for the counter. He just leans right out of the way and then 1-2s Bisping right on the chin, puts him out cold in the first round. Bisping, former champion.
Yeah.
And so Gastelum is really good at setting traps for these guys and luring them in. He's good at making people reach and then getting in on them and making them pay for it. So he's able to hop in and hop right back out to make them try to go for that long punch because they miss by that much. Yeah. And then they just can't resist. Like, okay, if I just throw a little further, I'll get him. And then they still don't get him. And they try again, and they still don't get him. And then he hops in, slips out of the way of that punch, and then catches you right on the chin. But Whittaker likes to throw different traps. And what he likes to do is back guys up against a fence and cut them into a corner and then get them moving one direction and then throw kicks at them. So he has heavy roundhouse, heavy head kicks, right? But he's really quick about it. And they're powerful, but they're not like he doesn't commit to them and turn his hips over so much that he completely loses stance and has to recover. So he throws these giant kicks, and they just catch people when they're not expecting it. And what he does is, since he throws so many kicks in general, he likes to throw a lot of low kicks, a lot of body kicks. Then he gets guys looking for those kicks. And then all of a sudden he switches it up and throws the head kick. The guys are expecting that body kick to come. He throws that head kick and catches him in the head. We saw him do that to Jacare Souza.
Yeah.
Where he actually backed Jacare into a corner. Jacare had been coming forward. He caught him with a punch. Jacare started backing up. He throws a left hook to get Jacare to back out to the right. And then Jacare was against the fence. Only way he could go was out this way. Whittaker's cutting him off to the point where Jacare basically has to go through Whittaker to get out of the fence, and Whittaker throws that head kick, catches Jacare, and puts him out. And so Whittaker's really, really good at controlling the range. So I think that could be really interesting with Kelvin Gastelum, particularly since Kelvin Gastelum's game is so dictated by moving in and out.
Yeah.
I think that Whittaker with those push kicks, especially with the low push kicks to the knee and to the hip, I think that's going to be a really interesting point of contention, because Kelvin Gastelum's a guy who he likes to move in and he likes to turn over and throw that long left. So if you have Whittaker throwing that push kick right to the hip, right as Gastelum's throwing that left, he's going to catch Gastelum off guard. It's going to throw Gastelum's balance off, and Whittaker's going to be able to catch him with a punch right after that. We've seen Whittaker do that a lot. He likes to throw little quick kicks and then immediately follow it up with a left hook. And he has a hell of a left hook. And he has a weird left hook too, where he kind of throws it like overhand almost. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a lunging forward left hook, where instead of a kind of leaning back twisting left hook, so it's not as close range, and he can actually cover distance with it. So that could be a very, very good tool against a Kelvin Gastelum who's a southpaw, so he's kind of open to that left hook, and Whittaker's going to be able to throw it over the top if he can get there. And I don't know. I think really it's if Kelvin Gastelum can control the range and get inside on Whittaker, I think he has a good shot of landing that big punch and putting Whittaker out. But if Whittaker is able to keep Gastelum a little more away from him, where Gastelum typically would fight, but instead of him controlling the timing and dictating when he gets in and out, if Whittaker's able to stop him from getting in on him, then I think that Whittaker will be able to control the fight. I think he'll be able to set up his heavy kicks more, and I think he'll be able to set up his left hook. And I think that he has just as much of a chance of winning by KO or TKO as Gastelum, but I have a feeling that we're either going to see a Gastelum KO or a Whittaker decision.
I'd agree.
Whittaker has a tendency for injuries. He gets injured during fights a lot, so that's always a possibility. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't happen, but
yeah, of course.
I think it's also a very interesting matchup in the sense that both these guys came up from being at welterweight earlier in their careers. Kelvin Gastelum missed weight a couple times. They made him go up. Robert Whittaker just decided he was sick of the weight cut, but they're two guys that have just looked phenomenal since they stopped having to cut all that weight, and it's definitely something to be said for that lately in the UFC. It seems to be a trend. We've seen a lot of guys go up a weight class and do phenomenally. We saw Donald Cerrone do it. We saw Rafael dos Anjos do it. We saw Sam Alvey do it at light heavyweight. Both of these guys have done it at middleweight, and they're all doing well, and I think it's kind of a sign of the times. I think the drastic weight cutting is going to be more and more on its way out as we see guys go up to a weight class that's closer to their natural weight. Because I think that draining your body that much, that close to a fight, has a worse effect than you think. It has a more detrimental effect than the size advantage you might have is a positive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really interesting fight.
I'm excited for this.
I don't know what's going to happen. Gastelum by submission.
Yeah.
10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. Whittaker by KO. Gastelum by KO. I don't know.
Who knows?
Very exciting.
This card in general is very unpredictable, but it's an exciting one.
Super exciting.
Yep.
Real quick, we got to mention Baltimore's own Gervonta Davis fighting this weekend. His original opponent pulled out. They got a replacement, though.
Awesome.
Unfortunately for that guy, I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for Gervonta Davis, man. That left hand of his is...
It's insane.
It's about as intense as a left hand can get. He has that power with every punch. And, you see a lot of guys who have one specific punch that has a lot of power in him for him. Dude, he throws a straight left, he'll knock you out. He throws an uppercut with that left, he'll knock you out. A hook, anything, and you're done. That kid is just phenomenal. It's great to see somebody from Charm City.
Yeah, of course.
Doing the damn thing.
We'll definitely be talking about it next week, though.
Yeah, see you wins. I mean... Gervonta Davis, man, keep doing it.
Yeah. So that does it for our episode tonight. Whether you're watching on thisislit2.com or you're watching on youtube.com, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. Take care.
The dude that killed a mountain lion with his bare hands in self-defense. He
Okay,
suffocated a mountain lion.
Like, how the fuck did you pull that off?
With his bare hands.
Like, you're a winner.
You know who could do
Tom
that?
Brady.
You know who I think could do that, though? Damian Maya. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yo,
he suffocated a grown man with his bare hands. Lyman Good. You should see a picture of this dude.